All right. Hi, my name is Anthony Norton. I'm here presenting for my video on climate change and how it is affecting a region in the world with this diagram here, which I drew all by myself. So, this diagram, as you can see here, is Japan. So, Japan is a victim of one of the effects of climate change, and that is earthquakes and tsunamis. Now, before we continue on to like seismology and stuff like that, we must make sure to define how does climate change even affect that if it's like underneath the ground. So what happens is we're using fossil fuels that increases carbon dioxide in the air. It's a greenhouse gas and is the most prevalent greenhouse gas that is able to retain heat from the sun's radiation. Now this is terrible because it's so easy to release this carbon dioxide into the air due to fossil fuel use, which increases year over year by every major country on the planet. So because of this, it's at I believe 430 plus parts per million, which is the highest it's been in like 10 million years. So basically, the highest it's been since the Earth has been like habitable, like actually. So because of this, we're at the hottest. We're at the hottest parts of the Earth's history in terms of like while it's like actually conductive to like life, because prior to that, obviously Earth was very hot before anything could really grow. So because of this, we're going to be seeing a domino effect. So, right, the carbon dioxide increases due to fossil fuel use. So, what does that happen? That means it gets hotter because it's retaining more of the radiation. All right, so what happens after that? Well, that means the sea levels rise. And they may rise slowly, like, say, 1 meter, like every few years or every 1 year. Hopefully, not 1 year, but every few years. And what happens with that is domino effect again. Not only do island nations like Japan decrease the livable land due to encroachment of the oceans, but the fault zones with which emit earthquakes and a domino effect again is emitting tsunamis as after effects of the earthquakes. The pressure from the rising sea levels, domino effect back onto the fault zones, goes in and disrupts basically ordinary activity in the seismic areas right here. So just to kind of explain this real quick, this is a map of Japan, so the top and bottom, north, south, east, west. And this map basically shows right here in the red zone, this is basically showing different fault zones. So this is a Tsushima Trench. This is the Japanese trench right down here. And then this is the Sagami Trough. Trough is basically like a specific area with which there's like a fault zone. So what they do is they put like fiber optic cables and other sensors down here, and they're meant to sense activity and like pressure buildup. So this will be able to allow them to predict when earthquakes are about to happen, even just by a few minutes, sometimes even up to a few hours, so that people can prepare. Usually just like 20 to 30 minutes in advance, which every minute counts in these types of scenarios. So the area that is most worrying is the Nankai Trough. Actually, this is like the whole area on the southern province of Japan, kind of from like Tokyo down to the islands. So this trough is the largest indicator of major earthquakes in Japan. And the last earthquake that happened that could have been indicated due to the Nankai Trough's sensors was 80 years ago, like in like 46, I believe. So it's been proven by scientists that this type of scenario of killer earthquakes ranging from like 8 plus magnitude happens every 90 to like 120 years. So that's like a 30-year window. And we're on year like 80 right now. So Japan has 10 years to get ready for the effects of a natural disaster that exponentially grows in damage due to the effects of climate change on how the earth is, operating on a systemic level. So this is very scary because Japan is not that big, and tsunamis get bigger every year. So the tsunamis, which is the main worry here, because an earthquake will tear everything up, but a tsunami will just wipe entire cities just off the map. So basically, how Japan is going to combat this issue is two ways. There's a direct way, and then there's an indirect way that leads to the domino effect, back to what we were talking about earlier. So climate change, the essential way that they're trying to combat that is to obviously not rely on fossil fuels. How's Japan not going to rely on fossil fuels? Well, they're gonna do what they tried to do a little earlier when they were less organized, but they're gonna do it like actually good now, because that one accident in Japan. But they're going back to nuclear, so stay with me now. It's a domino effect. If they go to nuclear and they do it correctly, by 2040 the goal is to have 20% of their energy for electricity to be from nuclear. So here's what we can expect from that. We should really be cheering Japan on for this because, domino effect. What happens is that people will see that this is actually a doable thing, which is having nuclear be a big piece, a 1/5 plus of your economic electrical needs. So this will be excellent because if Japan can prove that they can safely maintain nuclear energy that can safely kind of sustain itself while cutting back on fossil fuels, the waste on nuclear energy is insanely small. Now, yeah, it's radioactive, of course, but radioactive waste can be dealt with far easier than the terrible, gross potential effects of the environment basically burning to a crisp, basically melting the planet at a slow time speed. So, if everyone sees what Japan is doing and they jump on the wave, we can see major countries that usually don't even care about climate change, like China. They will do it because it's more efficient than using fossil fuel. It's cheaper, actually, and it just generates more power. So it's cheaper and more powerful. So if Japan can make this work, kind of like in the 50s and 60s where they're leading on computers or whatever, then they will inspire everyone else to follow suit. So obviously this is best case scenario. But that's the main thing that they're contributing in order to this talks about the dangers of climate change and what we can do to slow it down, as much as we can while still keeping our quality of life that comes with, the insane power usage of the first world. So besides that, they need physical defense, like something solid to protect against when these accidents do happen. Well, not accidents, but when these natural disasters do happen, like tsunamis. So what Japan is doing to defend against the bigger and badder tsunamis of a climate-screwed Earth is they're building this 400-kilometer wall. Now, this wall is made of a combination of water breaks in the ocean and then giant slanted concrete. Basically, yeah, it's just one continuous concrete wall along the coast of the north southeast, and it's going to block the initial crash of tsunami, especially the larger ones that are being expected with as the rising sea levels, just the increase in sizes of tsunamis in relation to the increase in magnitudes of earthquakes happening from this. So behind that, they're also planting trees. Now, those are excellent too because trees, as you know, absorb carbon dioxide. So not only are they protecting their walls with something that is actually not that great for the environment, concrete, but they're using it in conjunction with man-made hills and super thickly dense or super densely packed tree forests along the coast. And this is going to help with kind of rooting the soil and the land against something as huge as 100-foot tsunamis that usually will just kind of act as an eraser and just wash everything down. So this is kind of a multi-part plan that they're having, and unfortunately it's just them because they're main receivers of tsunamis in the world. 20% of the world's tsunamis, they usually go through Japan. Japan gets tsunamis like once a year. They get like killer tsunamis like once a decade. And they get like earthquake tsunami combos that can kill like upwards of like 200,000 people. They get that like every 80 years. Or no, every 90 years, I said. So it's been 80 years since the last one. And as the climate change has basically made all of the factors that happen that one has to consider when, guessing how badly a natural disaster is going to hit, we can guess that Japan will see their worst ever earthquake, tsunami, left right hooks in the next 30 years. So, what we should really be doing is looking to Japan and seeing exactly what they're doing and what steps they're taking in order to both lower the carbon footprint of their own country and then also what they're doing to protect the land that their people live on and need to in order to even have a home. Because as beautiful as Japan is, all it takes is a few tsunamis and it's gone. So it's very exciting to see, and hopefully with their advanced sensors along the Nankai Trough, hopefully with their giant wall against the area with which they get the majority of the tsunami impacts, and hopefully with their leading the way of kind of the rejuvenation of nuclear energy, and hopefully domino effect, hopefully with basically the consideration that this entire country is gearing itself towards against the effects of natural disasters due to climate change aggravating them, we can possibly see one of the major first world countries leading the way in like a new renaissance of altering policy and economics and basically just the fundamentals of society around maintaining the planet so as that we just can enjoy it more without the threat of a massive typhoons, tsunamis, earthquakes that get worse year over year. So, we should really look over to Japan. We should really be happy that they're actually putting money into this, specifically for this 400-kilometer wall. They're putting like $12 billion into this. And the money that they would save from an earthquake not completely wrecking their country in 30 years is, I think, the equivalent of like $2 trillion. That's the projected damage that this next super earthquake, which could only happen due to the drastic change in the Earth's environment over the past like 80 years. If they save on that, then what they will essentially have is a chance to truly change their economic and social policies to reflect a cleaner and greener Japan. So, all we can do is hope and hopefully follow in their footsteps as well. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Anthony Norton, and I hope that you found this educating on how something like the Earth getting a little bit hotter can affect every aspect of how the Earth runs, from the sky to deep underneath the ground. All right, that's it.